Welcome back to Curriculum Mapping with the G Suite. This is part 3 in a short mini-series on building a tech tool inventory add-on. In the last video, we successfully used AppScript to generate edit URLs for form responses. So when a response is given, it produces an edit URL that takes us back to the original form that was submitted. We also covered the idea of submitting a form and populating a Google Docs metadata. So if you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, please review those before proceeding with part 3 today. So step 1 is simply to import our tech tool inventory response sheet into our file cabinet view. And that can be done through a simple import range. So I'm going to my very familiar file cabinet view. And again, if you're interested in the files that we're working with today, they're all located in the demo site. So today I'm using file cabinet sidebar version 3. That's this document right here. So all of the scripts are attached to the back end of that document. So I simply created a new tab called Tech Tool Lookup. And this is a straight up import range of all of the data from the tech tool form. So notice how this sheet is essentially identical to the data I'm importing here. So once you've successfully imported all of your data, you can actually close those tabs, and I'm going to go ahead and close the resource there and just stick with the file cabinet view. So the next step is we're going to be working with the Autocrat Import. So that was this tab right here. And the reason we're doing this is to maintain proper alignment of the data, because this is data that is not going to be changed. It's basically the data coming in from the template request form. So the data in the file cabinet view can change, especially if units are pulled out and put back in, and it makes it difficult to keep data that's generated in these columns aligned if it's going in and out. So I'm opting to work with the Autocrat import sheet, and then from here importing the data into the file cabinet view. So we're passing a lot of data back and forth, but it's all with keeping it sort of consistent and accurate in mind. So in the Autocrat sheet, I've added 4 columns essentially to the end. So I've got a prefilled URL, an edit tech URL, a published URL, and then the published tech tools. So we're going to start with column J because this is really the easiest one to fill in. So this is a simple array formula lookup. So all this is doing is referencing the tech tool lookup. So all of the data here, it's referencing column A2 to A. So as we notice, it's referencing, we know column A here is the document ID, and it's going over to the tech tool lookup, and it's finding that document ID over here and bringing back the edit URL. So all of these URLs allow us to edit a previous response. So that's all that is. This is the edit the response. So the published URL, again, this is another array formula that is essentially a conditional statement. And what this is saying is that if there is a URL in column J, that should be the URL in column K. So in other words, if a tech tool form has already been filled out, the published URL is the form to edit that response. Conversely, If there is no data in column J, it will populate column K with the URL in column I. And this, which we will be getting to in a moment, is a pre-filled URL. So when I click on it, notice how the document ID is pre-filled for that specific Google form. So again, this is making a decision where J trumps I. That's what column K is doing right here. And then column L is once again a lookup in the tech tool lookup that we just imported. And it's just listing the data that is going to the metadata. So, and the reason I use this is that it gives you kind of the instant gratification that once you submit the form, it shows up in the awesome table. Because remember, the awesome table is only refreshing once per night. So any tech tools will not show up until the overnight if you rely on the metadata field. So you can actually refer to this column in your file cabinet view and display the tech tools here as opposed to using the metadata column. All right, so back to column I. This is the pre-filled URL, and this requires a little bit of app script to build. So what I'm going to do is simply delete all of this for right now. And I'm going to launch the script editor. And this is the script that we're using to build a pre-filled URL. So I won't get into all of the major details, but what you should note is you want to be sure you know where you're putting the URL. So column I corresponds to column 9. So that's where I want the URL to be populated. I also need to incorporate my form ID. Once again, this is my form ID when it's in edit mode. And then there's some more code about telling it where to start populating. So essentially, you don't want to keep rewriting over and over and over new pre-filled URLs. So you just basically want it to pick up where it's left off. So that's kind of what this part of the script is telling it to do, is just to pick up where it left off. And then here it's collecting the data it wants to pre-fill the URL with. So essentially it's populating question 1 with the document ID. And then down here, it's actually putting that URL in that column. So there's a lot happening with this script, but if we take a look here, notice how there's no URLs here currently. But when I run the script, the URL, the document ID will be the answer to the first question in all of these pre-filled URLs. So I'm going to go ahead and run. So it's done. So here, for example, this is the document ID for this French course, Rethinking Fairy Tales. So if I click on the pre-fill URL, I should see a document ID that ends in Z8A in question 1. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And we're going to look at the very end of this document ID, and there it is, Z8A. So this is in a sense forever locking my responses to the Google Doc that is attributed to this unit. So I think I'm going to leave it right there. But you may start to see where I'm going with this in terms of how the add-on will work in the end. But this is where part 3 ends, and stay tuned for part 4. Thanks for watching. Bye.